Yo, what's going on, y'all? This is Marcus Rosa, a.k.a. Mazuma TV. Back at y'all with some more boxing talk, man. I hope everybody's having a blessed, beautiful, positive, productive night. I hope you had a great weekend overall, man. Just wanted to go ahead and tackle this topic right here because it is something that has been on my mind heavily. I ain't gonna lie, since I heard this talking point, and to be honest with you, I feel like this is a narrative that personally needs to stop being put out there. You know, y'all could be like, oh, it's because you're a Boots fan, and oh, it's because you're from Philly. It is what it is. I could really give a fuck about what anybody has to say, man. You know what I mean? Don't attack the person. Attack the argument. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen, a well-known boxing writer by the name of Zittel go ahead and make this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and provide my point, and to the best of my ability, show you guys why that point is bullshit. You see what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody that's in the building. Y'all hit the like, y'all hit the subscribe button. You know what I'm saying? So, I want to start off by saying to Zittel, who I respect, I completely disagree with that take that he had put out here. You know what I'm saying? And for those of y'all who don't know, he said it's better for boxing if Xander Zayas beats Boots Ennis. That's basically what he said. But most of the points that he was really saying were really arguments for why a Xander win would be exciting, not why a Boots win would be bad. You see what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and break it down. You know what I'm saying? Some good things that he said that was truthful. Yes, Xander is younger. Yes, Puerto Rico, I'm Puerto Rican, is looking for a new superstar. Yes, a win over Boots would instantly make him one of the biggest names in the sport. Yes, we know that. I agree with all of that Zittel said. But what I'm going to ask is, why does that mean, with that being said, that it's better for boxing than Boots winning? Why is that better for boxing than Boots winning this fight against Xander? If Boots wins, boxing receives a two-division undefeated champion who unified in both divisions, defeating a young, undefeated, currently unified, and what many people say is the toughest fight of his career. Pretty sure that's a good thing too. Wouldn't y'all say that, boxing fans, if y'all truly fans of the sport of boxing? You said if Boots wins, he'll go on a Terrence Crawford trajectory. Okay. And as far as I'm concerned, Terrence Crawford is an all-time great fighter. Since when is producing another all-time great fighter bad for boxing? If Boots becomes a pound-for-pound star, moves up in weight, chases big fights, and builds a Hall of Fame career resume, I'm pretty sure that's great for the sport of boxing. When really listening to Zittel, the part I really didn't understand is this idea that Boots winning is just a step while Xander's win is a leap. Like, when you really look at it, sure, it would be a bigger moment for Xander. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's really arguing that, in particular. But boxing isn't supposed to, from what I know, reward the fighter who will benefit the most from winning. You know what I'm saying? If we're talking about the sport of boxing and what's good for it, it's supposed to reward the better fighter at the end of the day. You feel what I'm saying? And honestly, I think the biggest win for boxing already happened. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think it's clear as day that boxing got a win off of this, man. A 23-year-old, undefeated, unified champion is willing to fight one of the most dangerous fighters in the sport of boxing. How is that not a win for boxing in itself? How is this not good for the sport? You know what I'm saying? That in itself is the precedent. You know what I'm saying? That's what we should be celebrating. Not whether the younger guy in Xander Zayas wins. You know what I'm saying? The fact that an undefeated unified champion and an undefeated former champion who's looking to become unified once again are fighting each other before either one loses. That's the win. That's what boxing needs more of. You see what I'm saying? When you're really looking over the total, when you're looking over everything. And, another thing, Zittel, you talk about, Puerto Rico, which I'm very, familiar with, needing a new star. That's true. But, like, boxing, the sport of boxing needs elite fighters who are willing to prove that they're elite. You see what I'm saying? You don't really see that too often in the sport of boxing today. That's one of boxing's biggest criticisms. Boots isn't some 36-year-old champion at the end of his run. He's 29 years old, and he's clearly entering his prime. If Boots beats Xander, boxing gets another fighter who once unified at 47, moved up and defeated one of the best young champions in the sport of boxing today. The youngest current unified champion in the world. That's what Xander Zayas is. So why, with that being said, why is that not a great outcome for boxing too? You know what I'm saying? And let's not forget, this situation over here. If Boots really is as good as I believe he is, as y'all say he is, then taking this fight deserves a lot of credit too. I only ever see Xander getting credit for it. But for years, boxing fans have complained and bitched and moaned and cried that top fighters don't take risks. They wait. They let things marinate. They protect their records. They look for safer opportunities. We see what's going on with Devin and Shakur right now. They talking about, Shakur, cherry picking and shit like that. Boots didn't do that. He could have stayed at 147 despite him struggling and fought lesser opposition, or stood at 54 and kept taking tune-ups. But instead, he moved up and immediately took on Xander Zayas, who I'm going to reiterate, once again, is an undefeated, unified champion in an action-packed division. That's exactly the behavior boxing fans claim they want. You know what I'm saying? So why would it be bigger for boxing if Xander were to just win and that's it? And another thing that I think is being overlooked besides all of this is that you're talking about Boots like his story is already written. You know what I'm saying? Like, we already know what he's going to become. You never know with this boxing stuff. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? So if Boots beats Xander, maybe, just thinking about it, that's the win that launches him into another level. It may not only apply to Xander in this situation. Maybe this takes Boots to the next level. Maybe that's the victory that finally gets people to recognize him as one of the faces of the sport. You see what I'm saying? So this isn't just a big revolutionary fight for Xander if he wins. Maybe that's the one that leads to the biggest fights of his career. You know what I'm saying? Why are we only assuming that the transformational outcome only belongs to Xander? You know what I'm saying? And this ain't no knock on Xander. I put a lot of respect on Xander's name, especially for taking the fight. And, if he wins, that'll be huge for himself in the sport. You know what I'm saying? The fact that he's taking this fight at 23 years old is exactly why so many people respect him, including myself. We give him all the love in the world in the chat. You know what I mean? But the reality is both guys deserve credit for making this fight happen, not just Xander. You feel what I'm saying? Also, I think there's a difference between what's good for Puerto Rican boxing and what's good for boxing as a whole. You know what I mean? I think Sean's points is, clearly misconstrued in my opinion. You feel what I'm saying? Puerto Rico absolutely wants and needs a new superstar. We haven't had one since Miguel Cotto. We've gotten very disappointed, seeing these other guys come up. I get that. But boxing doesn't belong to just one country. You know what I'm saying? Boxing is global. If we're talking about what's best for the entire sport, then the conversation has to be bigger than just Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? It's bigger than just Hispanics. You feel what I'm saying? This is coming from a Hispanic man. I think people are confusing the most surprising outcome with what would be the best outcome. You know what I mean? Those two things are not the same. You know what I mean? They're not the same whatsoever. And here's the question I keep coming back to as I'm hearing Sean Zittel speak and all of this stuff, right? If Xander Zayas loses a competitive fight to Boots at 23 years old, what exactly is boxing losing? He's still young. You know what I mean? He has plenty of room to grow. He's still talented. He can still beat a lot of guys in the 154-pound division. He's still marketable. You know what I mean? Sign him with Bad Bunny. You think they wouldn't sign him if he wasn't marketable? You know what I mean? He'll still be one of the brightest young stars in the sport. You know what I mean? Like, when you really look over Xander's career, he's gonna still have a huge fan base behind him. You know what I'm saying? So, meanwhile, Boots would have the biggest win of his career. So again, Sean, like, when you look over everything, I think you're explaining why a Xander win would be exciting. I don't think you're explaining why a Boots win would be bad. You know what I'm saying? Those are two completely different conversations. You know what I'm saying? So I was really confused while I was hearing him say all of this stuff, man. You know, a Xander win, but you know, a Xander win is good for boxing, but a Boots win is good for boxing. You know what I'm saying? The real victory at the end of the day is that these two are actually fighting each other. So they didn't really get to understand, you know what I'm saying, that whole angle with him coming out and just saying these things. But, you know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I do think, and I'm not saying that this is Sean Zittel, I think a lot of these guys have these type of controversial takes because, you know, they may not be too fond of that particular individual, or, you know what I mean, maybe they're just trying to, you know, create a point just to get some type of, you know, this could be some form of rage bait. This could be somebody looking for some type of attention, trying to get some attention, trying to get some clicks, trying to get some views. I don't know exactly what Sean Zittel's intention is over there. Maybe he's just trying to play the contrarian role. Maybe he's trying to play the devil's advocate role. I don't know what exactly his intentions is, but when you really break it down, didn't really understand his point too much. Didn't really make much sense to me, and I think I showed y'all why exactly why I disagree with his take. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this. This is Marcus Rosa, aka Mazuma TV. Y'all agree? Y'all disagree? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys have a blessed, beautiful one. I'm up out of here, man. Peace.